In Southern California, a group of teenagers set out on a weekend trip into the woods. Rob invites two girls, Annie and Kara, to join the trip along with his friends, Charlie and Brendan. During the trip, the group stops by a filling station. Annie approaches Charlie and finds him constantly looking at a photo of a girl on his phone. She attempts to converse with him by offering a snack, asking him about the girl, but Charlie refuses to open up. On the other side, Brendan is holding his camera while looking around the filling station. Later, he comes across a pickup truck with blood on it. He studies the blood in the truck for a short while until a man, who identifies himself as the Hunter, abruptly appears behind him. The Hunter is dismayed, thinking that Brendan is a reporter. He intimidates Brendan and tosses his camera, showing him that the blood belonged to a hunting deer. Just then, Charlie arrives, successfully convincing the Hunter to release Brendan. The Hunter later takes out his rifle, scaring both Charlie and Brendan. In an instant, Brendan retrieves his camera and the group retreats to their car, driving away from the filling station. The group then makes fun of Brendan during the drive. In defense, Brendan talks about how strong the Hunter was, comparing his grip to someone who practices kung fu. When they arrive at their cottage, Annie, Charlie, and Brendan explore around while Rob and Kara stay inside and make out. The three walk their way to a nearby lake where Brendan attaches a motion sensor on a tree, saying that the device can help detect bears and anyone who will approach the cottage. Annie and Charlie continue toward the falls as Annie tells him her memories with Kara in the place. Later, Brendan calls out the two, leading them to a seemingly abandoned small cabin that he found nearby. Inside, they find several heads of hunted animals along with military equipment. When Annie inhales from a dusty surface, she suffers from an asthma attack. Charlie tries to come to her aid, but she treats herself easily using her inhaler. The three eventually discover that the cabin belongs to the Hunter, who was a former astronaut, as they find his pictures framed on the wall. Just then, the Hunter returns driving his pickup truck, causing Brendan, Annie, and Charlie to quickly get out of the cabin. Unable to use the door anymore, the three decide to sneak through the window and run away. Back in the cottage, Kara and Rob are interrupted by a news report showing an apparent buildup of clouds in many countries around the world. The cloud formation is labeled as the storm of the century, warning everyone to stay indoors. Kara appears more wary of the situation than the others, but when a call comes from her mother right after, she tells her that she is fine. From outside of the cottage, Annie, Charlie, and Brendan catch sight of the cloud buildup in the sky, marveling at the view. Meanwhile, a gathering is set up in a Blackbird military bunker. A group of officials reopen an investigation regarding Project Blue Book, a study about the reports of alien abductions in the country. They briefly review the history of the movement of the aliens between decades. A prisoner and former astronaut named Romanovich is brought inside for questioning. Colonel McAllen leads the questioning, urging Romanovich to tell them about his entire experience. Romanovich gives the officials a smug look for that the military suddenly needs answers from him now, but has been ignoring him since. As Romanovich provides information for the military, he warns Colonel McAllen that they cannot fight those creatures, but only prepare and respond during the aftermath of the events that are about to unfold. Afterwards, he shows everyone a strange-looking engraved mark on his wrist. Later in the cottage, Rob checks their car and finds that the battery is dead because the lights were left on. While charging the car battery in the cottage basement, they chat about the previous encounter in the Hunter's cabin. At night, Rob, Charlie, Annie, and Kara spend time in the jacuzzi while Brendan monitors the motion sensor using his laptop. Afterwards, Annie and Charlie settle in one cabin room where Charlie eventually opens up about the girl on his phone, saying that she was his ex-girlfriend, Rachel, who died from a car accident. Around the same time, the Hunter heads to the woods, seemingly making preparations while looking up at the sky. He positions himself near the group's cottage and uses his night vision binoculars, which reveal a flying saucer slowly emerging from the cloud formation. As the spaceship emits glowing lights from various locations, the hunter gets temporarily paralyzed but is able to recover afterwards. Concurrently, in the Blackbird military bunker, Romanovich is experiencing the same sensation as the hunter in the middle of talking with Colonel McCallan. Back inside the cottage, Kara sleeps in a room with Rob when she abruptly wakes up. She checks her phone and discovers a few missed calls from her mother before she looks out to the window and stares at the dark red sky. Shortly after, Rob also wakes up and catches sight of Kara standing by the window. The storm grows stronger, but Kara's eyes remain fixated toward the sky. Rob gets up and slowly approaches Kara. When he turns her around, she suddenly passes out. Rob then calls the attention of Annie and Charlie from the other room to help Kara up as she regains consciousness shortly after. Later, the group gathers in the living room through the instructions of Brendan. They realize that Hunter has been lingering near their cottage because the motion sensor detects his presence and reports to Brendan's laptop. It scares the group, making Rob go to the car to take his gun. However, on his way back to the cottage, Rob steps onto a gooey surface and discovers an alien hiding under the porch. He gets more frightened and rushes into the cottage with the gun. Filled with fear and confusion, Rob is unable to answer when the group asks him. Kara seems to be the only person in the group who has an idea about the aliens and the glowing lights. She slowly walks towards the window and continues to stare at the glowing red light outside. Just then, a shadow passes by the window area, making the group panic and turn off their lights. They ultimately decide on cutting their vacation short, devising a plan to leave the cottage immediately. But right in the middle of their brainstorming, Rob and Charlie engage in a heated argument, which stops when Kara tells everybody she suddenly feels unwell. While the rest of the group attends to Kara, Charlie notices something from the kitchen where they find a red glowing creature that looks like a jellyfish. The jellyfish-looking creature hovers around the area and slowly approaches Brendan before it suddenly leaves the kitchen. From outside the cottage, the hunter quietly watches Brendan, Charlie, and Annie during their encounter with the creature. The red jellyfish creature later reaches the living room, causing Rob to panic and accidentally shoot Kara. Realizing what he has done, he rushes over to her. Rob carries Kara while the rest of the group runs to the garage to retrieve their car battery. But when they reach the garage, Kara is no longer breathing. Rob breaks down while trying to revive her, but to no avail. The rest of the group stops him as they slowly accept that she is already gone. Rob, on the other hand, loses his senses and picks up his gun, aiming it towards them. Charlie rushes towards Rob to release the gun away from his hold, causing a brawl to ensue between the two. Charlie manages to subdue Rob, who falls unconscious in the garage, allowing the three of them to escape. Brendan quickly attaches the car battery and drives away from the cottage with Annie and Charlie. Right then, Rob wakes up and walks into the road before them. Charlie panics and turns the car away from Rob, causing them to crash. Rob then walks toward the group and is about to shoot Charlie when all of a sudden, the flying saucer arrives and abducts Rob. The rest of them fortunately escape from Rob and the flying saucer. They run into the woods in the middle of the night until Annie slows down, having difficulty breathing. Brendan gets separated from Annie and Charlie while running, wherein his leg gets injured by one of the hunter's bear traps. As Brendan screams in pain, Annie and Charlie are able to reach him. While Charlie accompanies Brendan, Annie runs towards the hunter's cabin to call for help using the military communication device. Annie successfully contacts the military, but then gets horrified discovering an alien inside the cabin, causing her to run away. At the same time, the hunter appears behind Charlie. He watches the two boys closely before approaches Brendan and removes the trap from his leg. When Annie arrives at the scene, the hunter gets spooked and defensively aims his rifle towards her. At this point, Annie tells him that an alien has entered his cabin. The hunter does not seem surprised by the news as he gets up and drags along Brendan, Annie, and Charlie with him. He uses the three of them as bait for the alien and successfully captures it using one of his traps. The hunter then shoots the alien dead before he takes them back to his cabin. Inside, the hunter treats Brendan's injury and reveals what is happening to the remaining teenagers. As it turns out, the Earth has been experiencing various strange atmospheric anomalies like the cloud formation, all because of the aliens. They landed on Earth and have been continuously abducting humans for a long time. The aliens experiment on the people they abduct, in which the humans gain enhancements and scars in return. According to the hunter, it appears that the aliens are looking into creating a next lineage of enhanced people who will inhabit the Earth. One of the previous abducted people was the hunter, who was taken while doing pre-launch checks on space with his partner Romanovich, the captain turned prisoner. Hours after the abduction, the hunter was released back to Earth, but with no 48 memory of everything that happened. He only found himself in a deserted land until little by little his memory started to come back. Moreover, the hunter shows Charlie and Annie the engraved marks he acquired in his body, along with the enhancements that he got. He displays his apparent telekinesis to the teenagers, tossing a book away without touching it. Besides, he has long been preparing for his ultimate goal of ending the visit of the aliens to Earth for good. Later, the hunter goes outside to continue setting up traps for the aliens while Charlie and Annie try to sink in the information they learned. Charlie opens up to Annie, telling her the full story of his ex-girlfriend's death. On the day of the car accident, he was the person driving the car with her, and he has been carrying the guilt ever since. Afterwards, the hunter comes back in the cabin, dragging along a captured alien, which he delightfully kills. Annie and Charlie decide to wake up Brendan and go to meet with their contact on the military communication device. The three are on the move when all of a sudden, a loud ringing noise breaks out in the cabin. When the ringing noise subsides, Annie and Charlie find that Brendan has disappeared from his spot. The two hide under the bed as another alien enters the cabin. Charlie elbows the wooden wall beside him and makes it out of the cabin with Annie. They reunite with the hunter, who uses his rifle to shoot the alien inside the cabin. He then gives his boat keys to Charlie, instructing them to escape the place and not come back. The hunter believes that the aliens are approaching his cabin to pursue him because of his unfinished business with the aliens. As Annie and Charlie reach the boat, Charlie thinks that the lake is too exposed and it would be safer for them to escape through the trees. Annie, on the other hand, insists on using the boat to be able to meet with her previous contact. Charlie does not seem to trust her contact and is worried that Annie might get abducted too. In turn, Annie decides to part ways with Charlie and takes the keys to the boat, leaving Charlie in the woods. However, she suffers from another asthma attack while trying to get the boat to work. Seeing this, Charlie runs after Annie and rides the boat to give her an inhaler. As they reunite on the boat, a light appears from the sky. Thinking that the light belongs to the military, Annie stands up and waits, but it turns out that it's coming from the aliens' flying saucer, and Annie ends up being abducted. Charlie, on the other hand, refuses to let her go and decides to come with her. Later, Charlie emerges from a liquid substance after waking up inside the ship. He comes out of his container only to find out that there are more humans that were abducted from the Earth. As he explores inside, he encounters Brendan, Kara, and Rob one by one while their body parts are attached to strange wirings. He manages to locate Annie and detach her from the wires, but an alien finds him shortly after and knocks him unconscious. When he wakes up, Charlie finds himself on top of an experimentation table with several wirings attached on his head. A number of aliens surround him while he is about to be experimented on by one of them holding an apparatus with a large and pointy needle toward his head. Charlie shouts until he becomes unconscious all over again. In the middle of the experiment, he dreams about his ex-girlfriend Rachel talking to him inside the spaceship. She requests him to let go of her because he has a new life ahead of him. Outside of Charlie's dream, the aliens continue with their experiment, poking the large needle deep into his head until he bleeds. A few moments later, the teenagers all wake up scattered around their cottage without any memory from the incident of the night before, including the abduction and being experimented on. Charlie wakes up in the lake nearby with an engraved mark on his shoulder. Annie also awakens next to him with the same condition. As the two reunite, Charlie stares at Annie before he inches closer and kisses her. On the other side, Rob and Brendan retrieve their crashed car, finding out that they are stronger now as they pull the car effortlessly. Kara, who was previously dead, is somehow now alive and happily reunites with Rob. Later, the news reports that the cloud formation has disappeared as the alien spaceship ascends and leaves the Earth once again. While watching the news report from his cabin, the hunter teases a dead alien that he has previously killed and skinned, claiming that the alien can no longer return to its home. Meanwhile, an international coalition has convened to determine a mandatory quarantine protocol for every human being known to have made contact with the aliens. The group's vacation trip has ended, and they are on their way back home using their salvaged vehicle. While on the road, Rob notifies Kara that her mother has texted her. Kara checks her phone and indeed finds the text. Confused, she asks Rob how he knows the text, but Rob answers her with a clueless shrug. All of a sudden, their vehicle is cornered by a police officer accompanied by a bunch of military officers. The police officer comes close to their car and briefly inspects the group. He eyes Annie and Kara, discovering the engraved marks on their chest areas, then instructs all of them to step out of their vehicle while he reports to the military officers. However, the teenagers' heightened senses and enhancements manifest in their bodies, and they hear about the officers' plans on getting them killed. In a flash, one of the soldiers fires at them. A shootout ensues in the middle of the road when Kara and Rob are hit. Charlie, on the other hand, uses his telekinesis enhancement to steal the gun from the police officer before shooting at him. From behind the trees, the hunter appears and backs him up by firing his rifle toward the soldiers. Charlie and the hunter exchange glances at each other before the hunter moves away and goes back into hiding. After slaughtering the police officer and the soldiers, Annie, Charlie, and Brendan head towards the forest by themselves, thinking that Kara and Rob are already dead. But then, Kara's injury heals on its own, and she achieves full recovery in an instant. She also manages to heal the gunshot wound of Rob. The two also survive the shootout. Through the end, Annie, Charlie, and Brendan take one last look at the sky, signaling an impending storm. The film strongly displays all the possible requirements to being a typical flick, the usual plot which involves a group of teens going on a trip and meeting trouble on their way. On another note, it is not its cliched storyline that is making it difficult to view the movie towards the end, but rather the lack of depth in the plot, the script, and the execution of the scenes. The film has a tendency to confuse the viewers as to which part is the climax or even the rising action, since there is not much going on. Alien invasions are always a delight to watch, especially to sci-fi enthusiasts, but it would take more than just the special effects and CGIs, which for the most part was mediocre. All in all, the film is a decent watch for one time, or could be better with a sequel for the sake of clarifying and bringing sense to the potential of its storyline.